Welcome to another episode of the Peak Performance Selling Podcast, where we interview top sellers and sales leaders to learn the different tips, tricks, and mental strategies that they use to create sustainable peak performance. Let's get rolling. Welcome to today's episode of the Peak Performance Selling Podcast. Today, we are welcoming on Johnny Occean, who ditched the world of accounting and finance to go all in on sales. He's a Boston sports fanatic, beach weekender, Fire Up Friday postmaker, and is usually walked by his Australian Shepherd, Cubby, when it really should be the other way around. Johnny's had a lengthy sales experience. He's sold door-to-door, staffing industry, tech to a bunch of different personas. He's helped build and lead SDR teams and is now helping to drive revenue growth for Mequilibrium as an account executive over there, which is a super cool company that I hadn't heard of yet and am excited to dive into more. And we'll probably have Johnny share a little bit with us about that. I saw him post a Fire Up Friday post, which just hit me right where it feels. You know, how do you start talking about motivation, inspiration with folks, especially on a Friday when so many of us are ready to check out? So we'll have to link off to him for his LinkedIn so you can all follow him there. And Johnny, welcome onto the show.
Thanks, Jordan. Thanks.
Excited to have you. As we always love to start off, I think I saw that you spent a little bit of time in the accounting and finance world and made the switch to sales. So talk to us a little bit about how did you end up making your way into the sales realm?
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting, I like to say it's an interesting story, I think it's a story that a lot of folks might resonate with, right? So, I really started a sales career when I was in college, just trying to make money to buy books, and still go to class, working for nightclubs and whatnot. After leaving, school and graduating and, thinking I was going to coach football and maybe be the next like Nick Saban or something. Quickly, found out that wasn't for me. So I took a door-to-door sales gig, and it was awesome. It taught me a lot of basics, but I quickly didn't like it. I didn't really enjoy knocking on random people's doors, asking them, for money essentially, and them being like, "How did you get to my neighborhood? Who are you?" So a buddy of mine was in staffing. I called him and basically said, "Hey, look, I have a little bit of a background in accounting and finance from college. I need a job. You're in staffing. Place me something." So he found me a role. I started kicking off an accounting and finance, career, where I bounced around a little bit. Ended up working for a company called ADP, the payroll company, where I was doing a lot of payroll and implementing new customers. And then I landed at another company as like a staff accountant. And what I quickly learned was that I loved all the conversations I was having, but I didn't like the day-to-day of accounting. It was boring to me. I would talk to Excel, it wouldn't talk back, I always said. So I wondered, what can I do, to leverage this accounting background and get back into sales after talking to family and friends that all said, you should really be in sales. You have the personality for it. You never shut up, which, at the time was very true. So I ended up in staffing, which was one of the best moves I made because I leveraged an accounting background and experience, but then also got to, sell to, organizations, but then also help people find their jobs, and kind of play matchmaker there. Taught me a lot of pace, very challenging because it has to be a fit on both ends. And when I was there, the way I got into tech sales was actually just through networking. I was at the gym, working out. I work out quite a bit. One of my buddies there worked for a tech company. We used to talk shop between sets. And after probably a few months, he said, you'd be great working at this company called Brainshark. And I said, well, I like what I do. I'm good at what I'm doing right now. and he told me more and more about it. I got into it, agreed to take an interview and landed at BrainShark and kind of, went on from there in tech. And, that was probably one of the best moves ever made, getting into tech sales. And personally, I love it. And, now helping, grow revenue at Equilibrium. Great company, building resilience for organizations, helping folks deal with mental health and well-being, issues on an organizational level. So long story, but, I hope it resonates with a few folks.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that don't ever see themselves going into sales first and don't see that as the career path for them as a whole. And so to have the opportunity to dabble around, try some door-to-door sales, try and see what you can do to make money in college, say, this might be cool. And now to be at a company that really helps people and organizations focus on that whole human aspect of it. Somebody I interviewed talked about we're humans first and professionals second, but so many companies have not acknowledged that or had the tool set to help there. So to be able to get behind something and sell something that, gives you the ability to feel like you're helping is probably a really cool feeling that most of us wouldn't have seen starting out. So I love that story and can definitely resonate. And so you talk a lot with companies now and organizations about, the mental side of work. And we've talked a little bit about, the traditional sales training. And so, having that athletic background, working out, wanting to be a football coach, talk to me about that mental game that you play with yourself or the SDR teams you've worked with to perform at your best.
Yeah. I mean, the mental game, it really is a game, that I play. Right. And, it's always been around setting kind of mini goals for myself, right? That are attainable for me, that I can actually, have fun with, at the same time. But it's a tough game. I mean, sales isn't easy. You're asked to take a lot of notes, right? There are some companies that will ask you to make 100 dials a day in hopes to get, 5 to 10 people, that'll agree to take a meeting with you, right? That's 90 no's, that's 90, doors in your face. It takes a lot to be able to, keep moving forward from that. So I think a big part of the mental game, is one, setting attainable goals for yourself, but at the same time, understanding that, this job is a tough job, right? And you might feel like you're going through a low, but, I always believe in the law of averages, right? So if you're going to go through a low, a high is coming, right? It might take a little while to get there, but I know it's coming, right? So that kind of fuels me through to make the next call, to customize the next email that might not get a response that you think is amazing, right? And it doesn't get seen. I like to think, it does get seen, right? But eventually you're going to get that response, and it just might not come from where you thought you were going to get it from.
Yeah, I love the kind of theme of planting seeds in sales, where those calls that you're making now, the dials that you make, the emails that you send are planting seeds for your future self to harvest. And even though you may not see them right now, that's okay, because you've got to put in that work. And the law of averages, knowing that I'm going to get there if I put in the right work, I think it is really powerful. What do you do to separate yourself from those no's and not maybe take it personally? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I think, you almost said it's not taking it personally, right? So, when I was working as an SDR and the folks that I kind of coach and mentor from time to time, I'll always tell them, like, you can't take it personally, right? Like, you're calling someone out of the blue, for example, right? They don't know you, right? You're interrupting their day. They had a whole flow. They had their day, their agenda was made, and you came in real hot and threw everything off, right? So you can't take it personally if they're like, hey, right now is not a good time for me. It doesn't work, right? Or even if they're not really fully listening to you, right? So I think to move through the nose, you have to be realistic with yourself, right? Put yourself in that other person's shoes and understand, hey, like, I am interrupting them. Let me do it in a nice way, and how I would want to receive it if I was on the other end.
I love that. I really think about, how would I want to be interrupted if I'm in the middle of my flow? Like, what would actually be valuable or helpful to me? I think that makes a ton of sense. And so then as you think about what you've seen across SDR teams, your own performance, what are some of those things that you see that really separate the top performers that you've got a chance to work with?
Yep.
And let's stick with the top performers. Like, what do you see really separating those folks from folks that maybe aren't seeing the success in sales?
A big thing is routine. A lot of them do a lot of the same things every day. And I noticed this a lot, especially when I was in office, because I could see them do it. Right. I knew where certain people would be in a building, walked in a conference room, just making calls at like 11 o'clock in the morning. But a lot of them also know their business and they know their market, and that doesn't just fall on the shoulders of your sales trainer or whoever's training you in the role. It really falls on the individual, to do everything they can, to immerse themselves in their market and get to know it as best they can, because, that's how you're going to bring value, to the person you're speaking with, to your customers, right? I always try to think about, all right, what does my customer care about, right? Because that's where, my prospect, that's what they care about, right? So how do I bring as much value as possible to them? And it might not necessarily be with a solution that I'm offering, or the resource that I'm providing, right? And that's okay. Maybe it's, I've spoken with plenty of people that look for like HRIS systems, for example, and that's not what I sell, right? But that's something on their to-do list. So it would be super easy if I could say, well, hey, I know these 3 companies are great at it. If you were, waffling between evaluating them or not, take a second look. That might save them some time, right? And I think that's valuable. I think being consultative is super important, right? Like, try to help them solve their problem. Like, all the top performers I've ever worked with, are very much so focused on solving problems, right? And if it's your solution, great. If it's not, that's okay too. But at least let them know that, point them in a better direction, or help them, understand more about their problem. And I guess the last bit is just passion. All the top performers, they're passionate about what they do, and that can take that can look different for a lot of different folks. But they're kind of all in. So
I think those are such great qualities that it was also interesting because we are missing so much of seeing that routine that folks do when we get to show up in office. I've been remote for a handful of years, and as you mentioned that, it just helps me remember that, yeah, I got inspiration when I walked into the office every day and saw, oh, there's a couple of people here before me. I'd usually try to be one of the earlier ones into the office, or later one to stay, depending upon how it worked out. But seeing those other people and what they were doing, now I kind of like look on Slack and see, oh, somebody's got a little green dot, but they might not really be working. They may just be, pretending to be online. And so talk to me a little bit about, like, what are your routines that you use to help set yourself up for success, whether it's around work or whether it's outside of work? I know we saw that you got gallon jug of water over there. You mentioned working out a bunch too. So those are some of the foundational elements, I think. But talk to me a little bit about your routines that you use to perform at your best.
Yeah. I kind of take every day and look at it as I'm going to work on my whole self. Right. Because I think that's really, really important. Right. So I work out a lot. I go to the gym anywhere from 5 to 7 days a week. But I'm doing some sort of physical activity every day. So if I'm not in the gym, it might be Cubby takes me for a walk, right? For a long walk. Or it might be, I'm going to garden today, right? I'm going to, kind of mow the lawn and cut down some, dead tree branches and stuff like that, and kind of make the house a little more pretty, right? I'm finding ways to stay active, right? Like I'll go golfing, usually in like the later evening. If it's during the week, on the weekends, definitely I'll spend the day golfing. And I'm not very good, but it's one of the only things that really relaxes me and where I kind of turn off, like my phone and things like that, and just focus on that. But I think it starts with creating habits when you wake up. So things like, I got to wake up, I got to take a shower, right? I got to wake up, I got to have a morning coffee, a protein shake, hop on my computer, pull up like CNN.com, like get a feel for what's going on in the world, check my Robinhood account, like that sort of thing. And then kind of, look at my calendar and dive into the day, like see what meetings I have, for the day, what's my prospecting activities kind of, going to look like. I do a little bit of that usually the evening before too. But for the most part, the day's kind of the same. On a weekly basis, and I'll try to spend a lot of time with family, right? And that might be in person, that might be on a call, that might be doing something for a family member that they know about or don't know about. But I try to do something that's family oriented, because that kind of brings me back to like my why, right? Because a lot of folks don't know this, right? But I'm a first generation American. So my parents weren't born here, right? My dad's from Haiti, my mom's from Jamaica, both grew up very poor, right? Came here, didn't really know anybody. My dad didn't even speak the English language, and found a way to be really successful, and my mom found a way to be really successful, and they raised 3 great kids, that are more successful than they, were, right? And I think that was their goal, so you learn a lot about like work ethic and what working hard really is, right? And what bouncing back from a lot of different adversity in a different time really is. And I use that to kind of, as a good reminder, to kind of pick it up a bit, and keep going. But I think I can't really do it anymore. It's like, what if my parents said that? Where would I personally be, right? Talking to friends and colleagues on a daily, weekly basis, just about life, just about, work, right? Like I want to hear what's going well for them, where they're struggling. A lot of my friends, they're in tech sales as well. but some of them are in other industries too. I have friends that are mechanical engineers and, they manage big teams, right? Like, what are they struggling with, right? And we learn from each other. So that kind of, helps. And then, on a daily basis, I tend to work on my mental health a lot. So that's something that's really important to me. If I can work out every day in the gym or do something physical, I should do something mental too, because they go hand in hand. So,
can you talk to us a little bit about what you do for your mental health and what that might look like? I'll talk to therapists, meditate, and do all these things. But what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of things, and I'm fortunate to work for a company that specifically focuses on building resilience, right? Increasing people's mental health, their well-being, overall on an organizational type basis. So, I work for a company called Equilibrium. We basically provide a tool that I use every day. And really what it does is it assesses, my top areas of stress, lets me know what doesn't stress me out, and then gives me like a tailored curriculum, right? Or, a lot of customized training specific to me and my, challenges, that I can, work through and get better from. Not everybody has access to something like that, right? So, before I joined Equilibrium, started using that, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos, right? And there were a lot of them were motivational videos, stories about people that had to fight through some sort of adversity and kind of bounced back, from it. I would Google simple things of, how do you deal with stress? I would never look at WebMD because it always kind of says you're probably going to die. But I would try to understand and figure out, how to reduce stress. What are some things I can do, mentally? Are there, things that I can do to impact my diet that'll impact, right? Like how I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis. I don't think there's anything else that I would do a lot of. I'd lean on my family and friends a lot, right? Because, a lot of what you're going through, especially, I'm 33 years old. My parents went through similar, challenges, right? They went through economic downturns. They went through a lot of big world issues, that we and when I say we, like, millennials, younger folks haven't gone through, right? So how do you navigate that? How do you deal with that mentally? Kind of lean on them to hear their stories, to get an understanding of, all right, this happens, I can work through this, and I've always kind of been a big supporter of folks reaching out, to therapists and whatnot if they feel like they just need to talk to somebody. I know for folks that are working, a lot of insurance covers that. So there's a stigma that goes with it, which is unfortunate, but, that's something that, that I've done. I know my family's done too. So I think that's kind of how I tackle it, I guess.
This is great. I think there's so much goodness in there thinking about, if I'm going to focus on my physical health, I should also focus on my mental health. I think there is so much that we are learning about how the brain is very similar to a muscle, that we may do a bicep curl or bench press or squat or whatever it may be. And the more that we can inject positivity in this wealth of information that we have with a simple Google search, to be like, how do I bounce back from stress? How can I manage stress more effectively? There's so much good content out there in today's day and age that it's just a matter of finding it. And so I think it's great to hear you approaching it like that.
Yeah, I think you just have to start, right? You have to understand that it's okay to not feel okay, but what's not okay is to not do anything about it, right? It's
totally.
like I've always heard, you see something, say something, right? That was something that was really big in the last, like, I don't know, 5 years or so, right? But if you're struggling in a way, there's plenty of resources out there, and even if they're not provided by like their organization, for example, a lot of organizations do provide resources, but I would urge people not to be scared to reach out, to ask for help, or to do a quick Google search to seek help, because they'll find it after some time. If you have to do it on your own, you'll probably find it.
Yeah, that's great. I love hearing that. Talk to me a little bit about, let's say you do have that bad month. We've talked about this a little bit, but let's say you've got the bad month or the bad quarter. What do you do to get yourself back on track?
So I mean, that really kind of goes back into the not being too high, right? And not getting too low. So every salesperson has a bad month or a bad quarter. It happens, right? It might take some folks longer for it to happen, but it's going to happen, right? So I'm really about being proactive, right? And being preventative as possible. So if I know I'm having a bad month and I'm on a low, I know a high is coming, but I'm going to double down on that low, and I'm going to work on my pipeline even more, right? Like, I'm going to look for more accounts. I'm going to reach out to more people. I'm going to write more customized emails to folks, because I know once that high comes, that's going to be great. But all those seeds I laid during the lows are also going to pop too. So, and that's how I've had a lot of success, year over year in hitting and exceeding quotas, is because when I'm low, I don't stay low. It's terrible. It sucks. It's not a good feeling, right? But if you can look at it as, especially as, AEs or, account managers and whatnot, right? If you can look at it as, okay, I'm in a low, I'm going to plant way more seeds right now, and I know I'm good at what I do, right? So trust yourself, right? Because that month you had a high, you thought you're great, right? Well, why do you think you're not so great just because you're having a low? It's a roller coaster. There's ups and downs. So once you get to that high, you got to know that all those seeds you laid are going to germinate, and you're going to have maybe more than you can handle, right? But that's when, you have to, be really effective with your time, lean on your managers, lean on your peers, that sort of things for help. So.
That's perfect. This balancing act of, how do you stay around equilibrium and not get too high, too low, to stay consistent. What do you love in terms of qualities for some of the leaders that you've worked with? What really stands out to you there?
Yeah, so I really like this question, because I think leaders are so important, to an organization, right? And just to folks in general, right? Because I really think that your employees' performance or your team's performance, is a reflection of the person that's managing it, right? Because a lot of their stress and a lot of the challenges that they might have can trickle down. So as far as managers' qualities that I've seen, they're confident. They believe in the organization. They believe in the shared goal that you both have, right? Your success is their success, right? It's not just kind of a one way where you're doing well or they're doing well and you could not be doing well and they don't really care. They're still going to make all the money they're going to make, when they're tied to your success, and genuinely, believe in the end goal, I think that's when you're going to see the best managers. Also, they don't sugarcoat things, right? They're real with you. At the end of the day, you're both just humans trying to find your way in life, and you have goals, and you hopefully have families and friends, and there's a world outside of work for you. So they recognize that, and they try to get to know you as a person. So I had a manager. I was at Brain Shark. That's a good friend of mine now, and we would have one-on-ones, and we would just talk for like an hour. It would probably take us a half hour to even get to, talking about, business and whatnot, but he got to a point where he knew that, like, I was a really big Zach Brown fan. Love Zach. I go to their show at Fenway Park every single year they play it, right? And there was a weekend tickets, came out, and he called me on like a Saturday. He's like, "Hey, Zach Brown tickets just came out. I know you want a spiff. Do you want tickets?" Like, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, you actually care, and you remembered, and I didn't talk about Zach Brown every one-on-one. I mentioned it, kind of off the cuff, like one random day, but he took the time to get to know me, to understand that. I have a manager now, at MeQ, and she's great, and, she'll text me, randomly saying, "Hey, like, check out this restaurant. It's pretty good." It's not about work, right? She knows I like to eat. She knows my fiance likes to eat. She knows kind of the types of food we like to eat, right? And she was out and about and saw a restaurant or had food and thought I might like it. So showing you genuinely care about another person, and they're not just a number for you to make your number, is kind of where, where I've seen the best managers, folks that really care about your success, or seem to care about your success more than they care about their own.
That's huge. I think it's so powerful to, what I hear recently, show up as humans first and professionals second. From Brandon Fluharty on the podcast talked about that. And I think that is so important, that even with, the product you're working on selling now, it starts to acknowledge that we are humans and not just robots that were built for the industrial age to go, crank out widgets. We have feelings, we struggle, we have good days, we have bad days, we have crap that goes on at home. It's about showing up well there and being able to be vulnerable about it, and then say, "Hey, I'm here for you." And like, how can I align our mutual interests or things that you're interested in that align with me helping you get motivated and work towards your number, or be even motivated further internally, is really powerful. A couple last questions as we wrap up here. Mm-hmm. Do you love winning or hate losing more?
Ooh. That's I hate to lose. I really hate to lose. It really does. I mean, I love winning, right? But I never like being last. And I mean, even when like me and my buddies, play golf, right? Like, and it's just me against me, right? I don't like to lose. I still want to at least be one stroke ahead, no matter what. And honestly, I mean, I think I'm better for it. I think it drives me a little bit. It's the same, in the gym and at work, in life. Like I don't want to lose. I always want to win, and Yeah.
That's great. I love hearing people unpack their answer to that question, as I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer, but I think it's something that's really interesting to hear how we think about it and hear how the brain works behind it. I've got a new question that I'm starting to ask folks. What do most people get wrong about work today?
I might have answered this differently, like pre-pandemic, but I think what people get wrong is that they don't take enough time to be at their best, right? So like I think of like teachers, for example, right? Or like everyone talks about burnout. Everyone's burnt out, right? I had this conversation with my sister where, she had mentioned like, oh, like, you're good at like compartmentalizing some things, and like not letting a lot of things, get to you, right? Which was her observation, but my response was, it's not that things don't get to me. I just take more time to kind of protect myself from them, and I create different, I have more strategies, for like pain protection, let's say. So, because if you're at 50%, right, then the best you can give someone else is 50%. That's not going to serve anybody, right? Like I think of the NBA, for example, and I think, who was it? The center for the Lakers. I'm blanking on his, it's not
AD? No.
No. Oh my God, Davis.
Oh yeah.
He had a groin injury, and they put him out there, I think in like game 6. And he got hurt, right? I mean, he wasn't 100%. He gave 100% of 25%. And that got him nowhere. That didn't help the team, right? So I always tell, like, my sister, if you can't give 100%, like, that's okay. Give the percentage you can give, right? And do what you need to do to try to get back to 100%, as soon as you can, and then kind of go from there, right? I try not to do anything 50%, because it's only going to hurt the other person on the other end of it.
I love that example of, the sports player going out hurt, trying to gut it out and hurting the team and hurting themselves even further and making them take even longer to get back to success. I think that's great. And I think it's something that a lot of us try and hustle and push through in sales, to be like, God, I feel terrible today. I felt terrible for weeks, but I need to keep pushing. And really, maybe they need to take a little bit of time to rest, to reflect, to renew, and to refresh so they can show up much closer to 100%. I love that. The last one, Johnny. I know we're going to get folks to check out the Fired Up Fridays that you're posting on LinkedIn. That's a great place to follow you. Anywhere else that folks should connect with you or find you?
LinkedIn's a great place. If folks are at all interested in learning more about Mequilibrium, I'll send you my contact information. They can reach out, there. It's just my first name, john.ocean@mequilibrium.com. But people can feel free to email me privately too. It's just john.ocean@gmail.com. So first name, last name, @mequilibrium or @gmail.com, or LinkedIn, whatever works.
Awesome. We'll link off to all that in the show notes. And until next time, make it a great day.
It's thanks to help from listeners like you, this podcast can continue to grow and help others. If you found anything helpful in today's episode, please take a second, share with a friend, and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast today. Thanks.